That was my sync point. What's going on, guys? My name is 𝐸𝐸, and today we're reacting to 𝐈𝐸𝐸 in Abyss episode 12, the penultimate episode of the first season. I can't believe we're already there. There's so little we did explore so far. It's insane to me that the story... Well, I'm too excited. That the story still has so much to give and so many mysteries to solve, and we're already at the end of the first season. I know we have a second season, and I know there's probably... I'm not sure if it's confirmed, but there's probably going to be a third season down the line because it's a very popular show at least within its category, since it's a very unique show as well. I do hope the controversy isn't going to drag it down too much, because so far, in my opinion, it hasn't in any way been all that controversial from the scenes. Yes, we do have a couple of scenes where, like, Riko, for example, is naked, but oftentimes she's naked off screen, and it's just Rex's reaction that is important here, which gives us the question more or less: why is Rex so embarrassed about Riko being naked? Who would program a robot to be that way? That is a question to ask, and obviously we did talk a lot about how Reg already sees himself as a human, so we don't need to go further into that. Last episode, let's get it on the screen, boom. We're just gonna scroll through a bit. We did meet our doll/hollow Nanachi, and I do think she's probably gonna be a mainstay for the show, and probably a cool addition because her character traits and whatnot are a little bit different from what Reg is, and what Riko is, and she probably has a lot of experience down in the Abyss. Whether or not she actually came from here, was born here, is a species that is native here, or if she used to be a human and kind of got changed or whatever, because she is also affected by the curse, although her little area that she leads us to is apparently for some reason protected. I wonder if that has to do with the wildlife, if the trees and whatnot, if they kind of protect you from the effect of the Abyss. I do wonder if the Seeker Camp has a similar effect, that maybe they built the Seeker Camp into these trees in order to ward off the effects of the curse and kind of allow travelers to be protected from it. Now, obviously, we know the Seeker Camp is far away from the middle of the Abyss, which means that the effect of the curse is weaker, but I do wonder if, as I said, these trees have specifically, or life forms in general, give you more protection from the curses of the Abyss. We do skip past the intro if we can. Nanachi is helping us to cure Riko through a symbiotic effect, or rather a misattribution of the host in form of a parasitic/symbiotic life form that grows on top of the pigs, like some mushrooms, right? Almost looks like cordyceps, but apparently not too harmful for them, but rather giving them nutrients if they need it. So we do have that double effect of possibly the mushroom detoxifying the poison that Riko got infected with and giving her nutrients in order to stay alive, or alternatively, it's just giving her nutrients in order for her body to remain functioning while the poison is being detoxified by her own merits. Maybe, who knows, maybe the poison's problematic effects, the toxin, is actually only a problem because it saps your energy, and it would just be too much of an energy drain for you to detoxify the poison in time and then survive the whole thing, because oftentimes you can't take nutrients in during that time. Add to that the curse of the Abyss, maybe that makes it even worse than in those specific circumstances. I mean, your eyes bleed, your nose bleed. Your nose has a direct connection to your brain. Your eyes do, your ears do. I do wonder if the curse's effect is actually not on these organs, but rather the blood comes out all of those orifices, because this has an effect on your inner organs as well as your brain itself. And we did talk about it a little bit in the last couple of episodes that it's very interesting how the Curse of the Abyss seems to have not stacking effects, but rather different effects for each level. But yeah, Reg does some stuff that, well, wait, I think my player just died, so we're gonna cut that for a second and go back in again and do hope that this time it's not gonna die on us. Reg is actually helping Nanachi get all of these resources, which I'm sure Nanachi would be in some danger, even if she knows her way around. And she thinks, well, this robot is a little bit more sturdy and he's quick on his feet, while I tend to Rico, because he doesn't know how to do it, of course. He can gather me all of these ingredients that I need. We do see that Nanachi has a little bit of a problem with closeness, right? Personal space. So very interesting. That seems to be a common theme among people who dwell too long in the Abyss. Interesting thing to take note of. And we do have Reg actually... What the... oh no, I was actually one too far. I'm an idiot. Good thing I didn't see that too much. We do see... yeah, Nanachi using Reg to gather the ingredients. I really do love the steam and all the presentation here, as well as like the color palette. We do have that very green healing, but also a little bit otherworldly sheen in Nanachi's region, and we do have that very blue hue that is apparently created by the fact that the light gets refracted by the fog down here. I do assume that's just ultraviolet light being that way. But yeah, we do save Rico, and Reg is doing some chores in order to do that. We do also meet a Hollow, an actual Hollow, not just a Hollow that survived and had their sanity intact. We did meet a Hollow here that doesn't have their sanity intact, or at least apparently. We do see later on they creep up on Rico, and the question is here, is there some connection they feel? What is their connection to Rico? Or is it more just like an emotional thing, feeling for them? There's definitely a person in there, we see that, but the communication is really hard, and we don't know how much of their intellect remained. Also, if they can be turned back, right, down the line. And yeah, we're gonna do that. We also see a glimpse of... what was he called? I don't know, something with B. One of the sovereigns, and he's the sovereign of the dawn. And apparently he has a connection to Nanachi as she was young. Maybe picked her up as an apprentice, like Ozen picked up 𝐸𝐸. I find it very interesting that we do have that pattern of White Whistles picking up apprentices or helpers that might in some shape or form humanize them almost, or keep them grounded, right? That's a very important thing to, if you experience a lot of hardship and isolation and whatnot, that to remain grounded, to have somebody you have a close connection to, that you can check back with, that you can ping and whatever. Typical survival stuff. A lot of these shots are really cool, like the dense and detailed environments from the get-go were absolutely amazing. And Reg, again, like I said, being embarrassed and all that, and Nanachi laughing about that. We do get the explanations about the mushrooms, and then Reg is gonna wash the clothes and gets a flashback, right? Almost a dream sequence hallucination, kind of, where he remembers talking to Liza, either talking to Liza directly or talking to Liza's grave that possibly he dug or found. Like, if he dug it, the question is, why did he dig it? Did he actually think that Liza was dead and had the scythe for some reason and was like, damn, I need to fulfill my mission? And it gets more and more complicated as we go on. What is his connection to Liza? Did she encounter and befriend him, or did she even modify him in some way? Is there more of a supernatural connection between them even? And what's the connection to Rico then? Why did he get out? Like, why did he travel out of the Abyss and save, just to be there at the right time and save Rico? Very, very interesting, because if you think about it, maybe Rico wouldn't be alive if he didn't come out at that very moment? Is that just convenient narrative timing, or is that some significance to that later comes up that explains why exactly he needed to be there at that exact time? And we do have that medallion that's very interesting. Rico found that in the beginning. That seemed to belong to Reg, and we haven't picked it up since then. I assume she probably has it in her backpack somewhere or took it along. But it didn't come up yet. It has a similar design as the star compass, as I said last time. Very, very interesting. Nanachi kind of teasing Reg is a funny thing that's probably going to come up later as well. We talked about games people play in Frieren, by Frieren reactions, which is very interesting, right, Eric Byrne? Where people develop these patterns of interactions where you say the same or similar things, right? Somebody says makes a somewhat of a statement that is reflective of maybe a part of their character, and the other one comments on it or brushes them off, and then there's this back and forth of interactions. I see that the pattern kind of developing here, where Nanachi is kind of teasing Reg about his naivete, about her being able to easily make him do stuff by appealing to his empathy and to his good heart, and also teasing him about being embarrassed about normal human stuff, kind of, right? Because he is not that old. Well, his body is not that old, and Rico is not that old. Rico is, I think, 12, 13-ish, and obviously these feelings come up in that exact time, right? When you turn 13, 14, 15, development of your body, hormones, whatever. But in Reg, right, Reg is a robot, first of all. We don't know how closely modeled the robot body is after a human being. Now, obviously, there's a very close resemblance because of the apparent looks, but also because of the functioning. They can process food just normally as any other human being to gain energy and whatnot. I think Reg sleeps too. I'm not quite sure if Reg sleeps. That would be an interesting thing to kind of see at some point. But yeah. And we are in a situation where we're close to that flower field, but Reg is contemplative, coming back, and we do see that being, I don't know how she was called, but I'm pretty sure the next episode's probably gonna say it, looking at Rico and being very interested, creeping up on her. So I do wonder what that's about. We left last time on that cliffhanger, and this is gonna be an interesting thing, I guess. I actually already opened episode 12. Had mistaken it for episode 11, so my bad, but that's fine. I didn't see too much. I just saw some Nanachi and Reg and whatever. Similar interactions as last episode. So I do wonder what we're gonna see here. You know the deal. We have a quick cut, then we jump into the episode, and afterwards we talk about it. Alright, let's actually start the episode. We're gonna start this in a 3, a 2, a 1. Bang. Oh no, Kiwi, what is happening? Alright, so she's globetrotting. Interesting. Pharmacist. So there's a fever going around. I wonder if that is like the thing about the birthdays that they said, right? Which is, or if it's just unrelated. A caravan fleet. So we could get some world building here, right? Is it flying ships maybe, or is it ships on the ocean, which is also cool? Oh, it is his birthday, but I do assume it's probable. Nah, I don't think so. But this is weird, right? This is a weird pattern. Humans like to see those patterns. Wow, okay. Born in the abyss, returned to the abyss. Yeah, I mean, at some points it becomes a pattern, right? Okay, so we do have a caravan ship as actual ships, which is very interesting, but also cool looking, almost, like I said, steampunkish and whatever. Wait, is he back up? What did I give him? I thought so, okay. Is it the effect of the abyss? Some people can't really do it, but why didn't he have the effects before, right? He lived here a couple of years. A very interesting mystery. Longing, yes. We talked about that. It's so insane, like it's just giving me goosebumps. Yeah, devote yourself to the course. A life without longing, more terrifying than death itself. Wow. And we heard that Liza is actually commenting on these. Very interesting. This is cool. That is very cool to actually think about. I find it interesting that the voice actress of 𝐿 is actually singing "The Beating of Our Hearts is Real," or something along those lines. So we're still in the Nanachi arc. Okay, cool. I mean, that would make sense. The true nature of the curse. Oh, please do tell me. 𝐿's probably gonna be distressed by this. I thought he would be more freaked out about it. Oh yeah. Yeah. Very peaceful, okay. Yeah, why does she get attached to Riko here? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I thought so. The girl in Nanaji's memories. Oh, okay, interesting. Oh, did she actually gain abilities through the warping process? 𝐿 is asking the real questions. Nice. Looks very delish. Yeah, I'm asking myself if Nanachi wants to be saved. Obviously, I think she has some part of her that wants to save Mitty, but she thinks it's impossible. So she might be afraid to raise her own hope for that. I mean, there was egg in it. I wonder if Mitty understands what Nanachi is saying. Right? We talked about how much of her intellect is still there. He loves it. She can't cook. Alright. She's gonna faint again. Yeah, I thought so. Alright, 𝐿, time to become a chef. Oh, I do like this color palette here. I mean, she can evade it, but does she? Is that applicable to everyone? That's a question. Where it doesn't. Again, personal space, right? I mean, that might also have something to do with 𝐿 looking like a guy and she might be being a girl. But 𝐿 can be relatively convincing, I guess. Okay. Is that a blanket or some shit? Alright. Sorry. Alright, here, this is important. Hmm. But when you go up. Alright, so it's a force field and it seems to be semi-permeable. Okay. And the layers get thicker and more the further you go down. I mean, it's kind of vague as a concept, but it's very interesting. Okay, yeah, the abyss wants to hold you in. It's a force field. Like a rat trap, holy shit. And she can see it. Mm-hmm. Oh. So the abyss is alive, it's a life form, right? And it wants to merge all of these things down at the bottom. Possibly the Seeker camp. Living things, that's the key thing. So how do you successfully get up again without it happening? She's right. If there is a way, they're gonna find it. Oh, that is a dangerous promise. Ah, the first layer. Love the OST. So Nanachi says this is her being attached. I wonder what Riko is dreaming about or what's going on in her head. Is that a representation of her mind, kind of? Oh wait, does she understand? Can they connect through that shared experience? These images, they're very evocative, kind of. And she's in that layer, right? We do artistically represent it as kind of slimy as well, which is interesting. It sticks to you. It suffocates you in a way. But yeah, Riko has an outer body experience almost. Not exactly, but I wonder how this works technologically. Oh, it's another cave raider, holy shit. Also, what exactly was that? Applying to Rex's sense of responsibility and empathy. Alright, round 2, bitch. Don't try, do. Don't question people when they tell you what to do. In this case. Ooh, okay, like a shark, right? If you punch it in on the nose. All right. Oh, there's some aggression coming out. Okay, right. He can use his beam because he knows he's gonna be safe. And you didn't expect that. Oh, did he actually kill it or not? Maybe it escaped thanks to that. Is there some recognition in that gaze, or was that just surprise? Well, you didn't listen exactly to what she did. He's making contact. He wants to talk to him. Oh, yes! Yes! He doesn't name his name, but Jiro's gonna know. Wow, and so the word travels up to the abyss. I mean, it might be taken as hearsay, but Jiro's gonna believe it. That was a very significant thing he did there. He trusts him, right? And for a reason. Alright. Alright. Oh, okay. Okay, it makes sense, but obviously this is gonna shock Reg. She doesn't believe there's a solution anymore. Holy shit, this looks insane. And we do have the flashback, right? And she can see the force field, so she can make her way through it somewhat. Won't let him keep doing as he pleases. The Sovereign of the Dawn, maybe? Was he using them? And this is where it ends. No! Okay. Okay. I mean, of course. Of course this is where it ends. Very, very interesting episode. We learned a lot more, right? The curse, the force field. It's becoming more tangible, right? Like an invisible force field. Like, I mean, there's been many theories I'd never seen Ozen and Merle peek out of that. Somehow I didn't never see that. Anyway, it's become much more interesting and much more relatable to our own world as well, right? Whatever you want to take as like a, right? There's often talk, like in physics, about what powers and fields are holding things together. What we can't see, right? But these powers are happening on a subatomic level, right? But if you have the information, or if you can see it like Nanachi, very interesting. This is obviously gonna help a lot. I do hope Nanachi comes with us. But I do wonder what happens to Miti. I don't want her to give up on her yet. Would be very much a shame. But yeah, another great episode as always. We're going further down, or at least, well, we do have this. We do have the map here, which shows Rex and Rico's position, which is not where we were before, but obviously this just shows where most of the narrative was happening this episode, so that's pretty cool. We're gonna make a little cut, you know the deal, and then we're gonna be back for the discussion. Synced up. All right. And we are back with the discussion. All right, let's talk about it. 𝐏𝐢𝐏. We start out with 𝐏𝐢𝐏 and the orphanage. Actually, him supposedly maybe having the birthday sickness, right? We do have a pattern of weird occurrences of children dying on the very day of their birthday, or children dying in quick succession with their birthdays being unknown, and we connect the pattern, right? We do see humans always connect patterns, but at some point if something occurs a couple of times or a number of times, and it's very odd how all the points that those cases have in common line up, then there obviously is some thoughts put into if it's maybe related. And in the context of this, we do get more exposure, more world building going on with 𝐸𝐢𝐏, our leader here, going to a group of globe-trotting people who have a pharmacist on their team apparently, and they go on their ship to maybe find a solution, find a cure, a medicine for 𝐏𝐢𝐏. But as soon as 𝐏𝐢𝐏 seems to land on the ship, he's perfectly fine. She didn't even do anything, and everybody's surprised. So the question becomes, what the hell is this, right? Just a moment ago, at the edge of the abyss, 𝐏𝐢𝐏 was halfway dying, had a fever like crazy, and suddenly they're cured. And you can't even just explain it by the abyss being the way it is, right? Having that effect on people, or on some specific people with not enough, right, of the genetic makeup or whatever. That something like this occurs on their birthday, like bam, and then it occurs. And the fact that all this time up until their whatever, how I would be curious if it's always the same birthday, or if it's at random ages or whatever. But if it's the same ages, or approximately the same ages, the question is, why does it happen if before that they were perfectly fine, right? Yeah, it's very interesting to see that little breadcrumb being put out there, and I do assume that later on we're probably gonna get more about this. It also shows at what level of technology and medicine we actually are. Now, we did have some guesses based on the apertures we were able to use, and based on the technology we saw in the orphanage with the torture room and whatever, but we are indeed in a somewhat of a steampunk age, probably more of a fantasy steampunk. Wait, I need to cut this. See if it comes back to normal. Yeah, maybe more of a fantasy steampunk, but we are in a steampunkish age. I do know from one of the comments that there's flying ships too, which is very interesting. Wonder if that is past civilizations, or if that is actually the current level of civilization and people actually do have flying ships to a degree. And we do see that people exist outside the abyss. That is an important part of characterization, to see that life outside of the abyss is also interesting and exciting, and people take up occupations and go globe-trotting and whatever. And this is a big attraction, right? The island that surrounds the abyss is a big attraction in the abyss itself, and visiting it might be a very interesting tourist location for people who just want to travel the world and find the whatever, how many world wonders this world has. And she does look out to it being like the mysterious great pit of the netherworld, which itself is referred to as a curse. So you could see the abyss in a way being a curse placed upon the earth, right? Something unnatural that bored its way into this planet and made its home in there. And that would line up perfectly with all of that Lovecraftian atmospheric and narrative connotations that we do have in the story. And from that we do go over into the narrative, and the narrative being 𝐸𝐲, obviously. Once again, I do think it's 𝐸𝐲. I'm not quite, it might not be 𝐸𝐲. I might be confusing that a little bit, because somebody told me that when we were at the Great Vault, that 𝐸𝐲 was doing the narration. Wait, let me just see if I can recognize the narration here. Yeah, it sounds very much like 𝐸𝐲, I would say. It sounds very much like 𝐸𝐲, and she says that, explains in a way that her philosophy, which is for them a life without longing is more terrifying than death itself. And isn't that a very interesting thing? Life without striving for something, a life without being passionate about something, a life without goals to walk towards, and a life without feeling that longing and following it. And that seems to be almost a curse, right? That afflicts a lot of people here surrounding the abyss. And 𝐸𝐏 especially, who has a very special connection to the abyss, as we found out the last couple of episodes. Jumping the intro, like I said, I find it very interesting that 𝐿 is the one singing about the beating of our hearts, and his whole theme being that he's very empathetic with everybody, despite being a robot, and that he has a lot of fear and anxiety and anxiousness in general inside of him, which has to come from a place of holding certain things dear, even if in reality, when we talk about children or also adults having problems with fear, and that this obviously comes from possibly traumatic experiences or problems within their development as a child when it comes to attachment styles to parents or loved ones, and security of their environment and other things, right? There's a lot of that connected to fear, but obviously in a way it comes from our emotions, right? It also tells us something about what we value in life and what we wish for and who we like as people, because those that we like the most, those that we attach the most, and the things that matter the most to us are matters that are very near and dear, very close to our hearts. But yeah, 𝐿 comes back, and as I suspected, he panics. He thinks like 𝐷𝐸 is maybe eating �РICO, but Nanaji's like, it's fine. She doesn't attack people generally, and she explains how the poison, like the antidote for the poison, actually came from 𝐷𝐸, and her body in some way can make that. So I wonder if 𝐷𝐸's species, or the way 𝐷𝐸 worked before she was a hollow, is actually responsible for making that, or piercer anti-venom, or like if she had the ability before she transformed, or if that is a result of her transformation, in which case we could lean again into that curse and blessings kind of thing that we have looked at in the past episodes over and over, where we were like, okay, there's a lot of negative things that are connected to going up again through the abyss, but if you brave the challenges and actually survive that, is there something good coming out of it? And that question kind of remains. I'm pretty convinced at this point that Nanaji, as we saw as a very young child with the Sovereign of the Dawn, that she was that species to begin with, but it's still up in the air if she grew up or got born on the surface, or she grew up and got born in the abyss. We don't know that. At least we do know she didn't get transformed the way she is now by the abyss. And we do know why. She can see the layers of the curse of the force field of the abyss, and we get into that in a little bit. But it's very interesting to see that there might be benefits to the curse of the abyss, even if the negatives far overweight the benefits in the case of 𝐷𝐸 here. But yeah, we do find out that Nanaji is not good at cooking. She might be able to see the layers of the abyss curse, but she's not able to cook properly. And she's very embarrassed about that, and that's actually super endearing when you see it. She's like really bashful about the fact that she can't cook that well, and she has never had food that's really good. So there's certainly a point where we could maybe have a very wholesome 𝐿 or �ＲICO teaching Nanaji how to cook kind of thing down the line if she sticks with us. But yeah, we do what was that about? Yeah, she's kind of dunking on 𝐿, but we had that. I mean, I said that in pre-discussion. That is kind of a pattern that developed, but it's kind of bringing them closer together. They're kind of teasing each other. Or rather, she teases him and he reacts very, I mean, but he knows she doesn't mean it in a mean way. Still, it's still a sore spot for him, right? He's blaming himself more often than not that he's not good enough, that he doesn't remember shit, or doesn't remember it fast enough. Of course, we do see some of the memories kind of slightly coming back, like in pieces and very splintered fragments. But yeah, she explains to him how the abyss works. It's a force field. And now we can imagine it better. I mean, obviously it might not be like a force field in actual physics, But we do have a lot of fields in our, right? Gravitational fields, which not necessarily might be gravitational fields, right? Gravity, the whole matter in gravity is still open in terms of physics and how it works and whatever. But we do have electric fields, we do magnetic fields, and they all kind of influence us and the things around us on a subatomic level. If you look at, if we do look at how the magnetic field of the Earth is protecting us from the solar rays, like the UV rays coming onto the Earth as solar flares keep happening. The radiation from the sun would cook us alive if this wasn't the case, right? So, and now we can imagine it better. There's layer upon layer of something. We don't know what it is, but it's some kind of field. It almost seems to me like it's described as a waveform, right? And we do have that whole spiel in subatomic physics where it's about matter not necessarily being solid, right? Matter existing not just as particles, but also as waves at the same time. And apologize about that. At the same time, and we do not know how it exactly works as non-physicists, right? And even as physicists, there's still some disagreements and whatever, and we haven't found a unified theory to kind of get whatever we're predicting on the large scale of planets and the universe to actually also make sense on a subatomic level and vice versa. But yeah, we can imagine it a lot better now if we relate it to concepts that are similar to what we know from science and what lay people like me and you, assuming you're not a physicist, know about science. And the abyss kind of has that effect on us, right? If only a small part of us moves up, it's not that big a deal. But if important organs that are integral to our survival, that are very important, if they get affected by this force field, and if we move up too fast, it's gonna be that way, right? It's gonna have that negative effect on us. Now, we don't know at this point in relation to what we got explained how that makes Reg immune to that, because Reg is still made of matter. He's still somewhat of a living being. He's not actually complete living being, right? He's a robot, but he would probably fulfill the criteria of a living being if we go by the vague criteria, like the broader criteria that we define it as in our real world, which is that living things metabolize stuff and maybe and reproduce, possibly, right? He has a functioning penis. It works. Technically, we know it's not artificial, at least. Yeah, I mean, technically, and he has emotions, right? He has the desire to reproduce. Now, emotions are not a requirement for being a living thing, but it's even a more narrow requirement that puts it more in the category of humans or humanoid mammals or whatever. So in a way, Reg would fulfill a lot of those criteria for living beings, and we still don't know why Reg isn't affected by the force field then. But having this knowledge, I think it's kind of a shame that Rico doesn't get that knowledge. But Rico already has so much knowledge about the Abyss. I think it's good that Reg learns a little bit more about other concepts that he then can carry over to Rico. And now that we have that knowledge, Rico might be able to properly also avoid the effects of going up, if they actually do have to go up a little bit more as they... Right? Sometimes you do have to go up, as in case of the orb piercer, they were able to actually get out of there. And now we do have our answer. The monsters of the Abyss are affected by this as well, but they can see, much like Nanachi, they can see the layers of the Abyss curse, of the force field, and they can move through it more, much like I think through water or whatever, in order to not cause too many ripples and stretch it not too much, and they can see where it's most dense and then avoid these spots. And knowing that and having that knowledge is very interesting. I do wonder if some of the white whistles have developed the technology to do so, or have developed other telltale signs that can help them some way to avoid the barbs, as 𝐸𝐷 says in just a couple of seconds after the scene. And I do wonder if others might have persevered by just being very meticulous and very slow in going up, and much like getting used to a poison, you can gain some resistance if you survive going up. Because 𝐸𝐷 says she survives by just being able to see it and avoiding the most strenuous parts of it. But I do think that there's a real possibility that some of the white whistles take this long to get back up, not just because of the time dilation, but also because it takes a lot of time to carefully make your way back up without being hurt. So I do still wonder what happened to Mitty in this case. It has something to do with the Sovereign of the Dawn. I do assume we're probably gonna immediately get the flashback next episode, which is cool, as kind of a stinger for the second season, maybe meeting that guy down the line, because he seems to be somewhat shady and possibly might have used 𝐸𝐷 and Mitty to a degree, if that little piece of dialogue that we got at the end of the episode is anything to go by. But yeah, what else do we have? I do wonder where it comes from then, right? These layers, this force field. The Abyss almost seems like a living organism, like it wants to hold you in. This is almost like a rat trap where the one side is kind of permeable, right? Where you can go through, but if you want to go back up, there's all these barbs and wires, as she explained, holding you back. Or in a way, it's like a semi-permeable membrane where water can go into the cell, but it can't go out, which is a very important effect in a lot of biological organisms and general biosystems, and a very, very interesting principle in general. But it feels almost like the Abyss has a need to lure living things, because there's specifically the emphasis on that it doesn't let living things out. There's no emphasis on, like, if I throw a rock up there or something, or an arrow, that it would be subject to the same problematic forces that make it crack or crumble on the inside. It's more of a hey, I don't want, or the Abyss doesn't want living things to come back out of it. And that could have all kinds of reasons that are very fascinating and very, very creepy as well, right? It's as if the Abyss has a will on its own, and maybe, depending on that will, different individuals are affected differently. Maybe it's not even genetics or you becoming resilient to something, but it's more a test of the Abyss, right? And willpower and strength and motivation and whatnot. I mean, Rico obviously has a lot of motivation, but she's still very green. So I do wonder if it's in some way part of that, because we know the Abyss can affect minds. It can lead to insanity. It can affect minds, and we hypothesize that maybe the mind in the Abyss is also able to affect matter around it. So we come to concepts such as an AT field in Evangelion, which by the way, obviously is in its expression absolute bullshit, but it symbolizes the personal barrier, right? Me representing myself as an individual, separated from other beings. And I do wonder if some concepts such as this exists within the Abyss. I do wonder though why the Abyss then doesn't have the same effects on each level. I do know that it gets denser down the line, but why doesn't it cause hallucinations 2 or 3 levels below the one where you start having hallucinations? If that is just a product of the pressure, or the pressure of the force field being stronger, and as such these hallucinations aren't coming. I mean, I guess there is situations in which you get badly hurt and you start bleeding immediately, you have a lot of damage and you're not hallucinating, and maybe stages where you're not as badly damaged, where you're barely feeling anything, and somewhere in between these hallucinations would start. It's just the right amount of damage that's happening to your brain. Yeah, that's the only way I can kind of explain it. Like, having a stroke doesn't necessarily mean that you might have hallucinations, but it can mean it, right? You have a stroke in a certain area and suddenly you have visual hallucinations. You have a stroke in the same area that's bigger or more severe, you might just have a complete fallout of these capabilities, of these senses. Like, it might be a total thing, and then obviously you won't have hallucinations anymore because those parts of the brain aren't working anymore at all. So yeah, yeah, we do have the rat trap, and then we do have Rico's very creepy, very interesting dream, right? This reminds me of that. Like, I have no mouth and I must scream, like the title picture of that, and it's very body horror-esque. But we do have eye to eye, right? Eye to eye is a saying, and I wonder if there is some truth to this visual symbolization of that, where Mitty is getting pretty close to Rico and feeling with her, maybe also because they both had these effects of the abyss, and Rico is certainly in some form of delirium, and maybe being in that unique state of mind kind of has them being way more connected on wavelength, right? On an emotional level, on maybe even a mind level, depending on what the forces are going on in the abyss, and they have that moment of understanding by looking in each other's eyes and kind of communicating without communicating. That's what I read into this situation. I mean, it's over very soon, and we do have that representation of the slime, which I do assume maybe is just a representation of the curse of the abyss still holding on to Rico, but parts of it slowly washing off. Maybe it's the poison too. Could be both, but either way, very interesting. We do try to save that black whistle, actually manage to save that black whistle, and use the Orpheus' capabilities against itself. It seems to have an organ like a shark with its echolocation or whatever, where it can sense the layers of the abyss. If you grab it, it's getting damaged or disrupted, and it can't do that anymore, so it panics, which makes sense. And Rek didn't quite listen to Nanachi here. He shot his cannon, and yes, the Orpheus got away. They saved the black whistle, right? And it had to shed some of its, like 80% of its piercing things, so it can't hunt here anymore, so it's not a danger anymore, but there are more Orpheus like this, right? And probably if he pummeled it to death, it might have been the better choice. He might have been able to actually defeat it. But he shows off his skills here, and Nanachi is absolutely flabbergasted. I do wonder if she knows at least the nature of the beam, because she looked like she might recognize it to some degree, but we can't really, right? That second look that we have on screen right now, that looks more like, hey, I have seen that somewhere before, but could also just be absolute shock at what he's capable of, and her thoughts about killing Mitty being like conceived there. Anyway, Rek does something very, very exciting here, and very important, very meaningful in the sense of the story that we've experienced so far, and what we know about the abyss and the cave raiders and whatever, while not betraying Nanachi and not mentioning her at all. And also, I mean, he has a unique design and description. He looks very unique, and if Jiro gets described how the person who relayed this message looked, then he's gonna be, alright, that's Rek and Rico. And they're not gonna mention Nanachi at all or have any sense of that, but they know where they are now, right? If the black whistle actually manages to get up, which they seem to at the moment at least. Maybe they came from even further down below, which is very exciting, because it shows that it's not just a few that make it down there, but there's a decent amount of black whistles that make it to this level. I mean, we might have been told that before, but it's another thing to see and experience and encounter people who went down all the way there. Bro looks pretty healthy too in general, aside from being somewhat old. But yeah, he doesn't seem to know 𝐸𝐲, which is also very interesting. So he might have been down a while, and it's been a while, and 𝐸𝐲 might have just been a kid when he was last back up. But either way, he's trying to make it back up, and 𝐸𝐬 is still relaying a message. And 𝐸𝐲 is the one he trusts the most, apparently, which makes perfect sense. 𝐸𝐲 was the one to test them, but also be okay with them going their way. I mean, 𝐏𝐲 was too, but 𝐏𝐲 is more of an external source. 𝐏𝐲 is his own person and not that quite connected to them. And also 𝐏𝐲, I don't know. I mean, 𝐸𝐲 might be closer to them also because he's closer to them in age. And also because 𝐸𝐬 himself has seen 𝐏𝐲 only one time, while he spent a decent amount of time with 𝐸𝐲, and I think he liked him. Right? So this is who he trusts the most, and he relays this message on. And even though we know that at a certain depth, stuff is being taken as a rumor if it doesn't come from a white whistle, it's still amazing that 𝐸𝐲 would believe it. And also, I do think we're still at a depth where it's like, right, this is a gray area where a little bit more below, then it's not taken at face value anymore, but we're still on a level where it might be believed to a degree. And that, I don't know, it marks the start of their legend, right? The legend of Rico and 𝐸𝐬. And everyone who knew them is gonna know they're alright and rooting for them and whatever. I get reminded of, I've seen the One Piece live action. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen One Piece. I've seen One Piece as a kid, and at some point just stopped watching. And I had a point where I stopped watching anime for a couple of years, maybe even 10 years almost. But yeah, it's very interesting because we have a similar scene in the One Piece live action where we do have a character getting their name out there, and people who have met them along the story seeing that and recognizing that and being somewhat proud. And we have something similar, I feel, maybe here, and that might be a really cool theme to end on for the first season. Either way, I think Nanachi is here to stick around. 𝐸𝐬 is asking her to come down with them. He wished she would be there because she has the knowledge, right? And he also seems to like her. She's a friendly face in this very foreign place. It's always good to have that friendly face here. But yeah, Nanachi asks. It's almost emotional baiting, but it's very hard for her to ask because she doesn't want to do it herself. And I understand it 100%. It's her friend, and she can't bring herself to do it. She hasn't gotten to the point where she could do it all this time. And apparently she is of the opinion that 𝐸𝐸 cannot be saved. Now, if that opinion is based on actual facts, or if it's just based on her experience, and her experience is not far enough to cover all the information that is possible in the Abyss, we don't know, but we can very much assume that Nanachi isn't all-knowing, doesn't know everything about the Abyss, just everything up to the depth that they are at, and maybe a little bit lower than that. She knows her way around those areas, but maybe further down into the Abyss, when we find out where this force field is really coming from and what it's doing and why it's doing what it's doing, maybe we can find out a way to save 𝐸𝐸. But she asks us here to kill 𝐸𝐸. And obviously 𝐸𝐬 is going to be shocked by this. And we go right into a very emotional, probably very traumatic flashback for Nanachi, where she has a sentence that is very interesting for me. I just have to find it. Yeah, I think it's a little bit earlier. Yeah, it's... I'm sorry I was such a coward. I won't just let him keep doing as he pleases anymore. And I do maybe the Sovereign of the Dawn be some... I don't know his name anymore, honestly. And if it gets mentioned, I will instantly recognize it. But maybe he did something with 𝐸𝐸, or put her in this compromising situation. And Nanachi listened to his orders because she was used to following him or too afraid to stand up against him. And this is what brought Mitty into the situation, what made her the way she is now. And she blames herself for that. And that is obviously a very sad story that we're probably gonna experience the next time. I'm assuming that first half of the episode, maybe just a third or something, or a quick 5-minute portion of it will be dedicated to Mitty and what happened to her and why it happened to her, or at least what Nanachi did that might have led to these turns of events, and maybe how she made it out of the lower layers. I find that very interesting. We have a lot of snow here, which is fascinating, right? And we do see that is a lower layer, right? I think it's the Sea of the Undead, and maybe they're even in the capital of the Unreturned. And we end on that cliffhanger once again. I mean, that's how it always ends, right? It's a fucking cliffhanger. It's insane what these children are going through on a psychological level. I mean, there was nothing with Riko right now. She might have a new connection to Mitty and might have some new thoughts to share after she's made it out of this crisis. But I do wonder how, on a prolonged period, Reg is going to react to this request that Nanachi just made, and what happened to Nanachi and Mitty, and how it's connected to the Sovereign of the Dawn. And we'll have to see next time, right? And maybe even we do start our journey down into the Sea of the Undead next time. I do think this is a good place for the story to have the final episode explaining a little bit of Nanachi's backstory, then having Riko recover and them being ready basically to take the next step, to take the next plunge, because at this point we're at the level that is so far below, and this might be the last message for a while that we can relate to the surface. It's a checkpoint basically. It's the last, it's a next step into a very dangerous world that we do know even less about. And this is the territory that at this point, maybe the occasional black whistle will go down there, but mostly this is white whistle territory, which is, alone the fact that they made it this far is very impressive. I do hope, like I said multiple times throughout all of these episodes, that Riko at some point is gonna make it down there. I do hope, and I do also hope that she's gaining some capabilities down the line. We had a very traumatic experience with her, because and I do really wish for her that she gains some capabilities, because otherwise Rek is gonna get more and more anxious, and it gets harder and harder for him to make decisions, because whenever he's gonna have to make decisions, there's gonna be all this anxiousness about what happened to Riko in the past. If Riko gains some capabilities now and can actually manage to have one or two successes where she successfully defends herself, be that through new information that comes in, ingenuity, tools that she gets, then maybe she can gain a little bit confidence, and Rek also can gain confidence in her. Nanachi is definitely going to make this better, because we have a third person there that is kind of there, able to focus Rek in very tough situations and also keep an eye on Riko. But so far, Riko mainly gained abilities on a mental level, on an emotional level. And I do still wonder if Riko actually died down here, she wouldn't just be resurrected again without the vessel. Because for all we know, the vessel could have actually altered her very nature, and the resurrection is just a part of that alteration of the nature, and it would possibly maybe keep happening even if she dies down the line, which would be a very cool, awesome power to unlock. But at the same time, it's very dangerous to unlock, because at this point, what are the stakes, right? What are the stakes for Reg? How do we manage to help him develop his character if the main source of his anxiety and inability to make decisions is gone, which is being afraid that Riko dies or suffers? I mean, she can still suffer. That is a good point. I also wonder if we will recover the pickaxe and our backpack and whatnot, or if Nanachi maybe went out at some point and just got it for us. that's a possibility, of course. Yeah. Very cool that we do have the flower field on the map. It's not showing directly where it is, but it seems to be somewhere in the Gulf of Giants in the area. Maybe we'll stumble upon it before we go further down. Yeah, that's it for episode 12 of Made in Abyss. One left to go for season 1, and then I know we do have Dawn of the Deep Soul, which is the big movie that we're gonna react to. Maybe I'm even gonna take Dawn of the Deep Soul, do it either before Dawn of the Deep Soul or after Dawn of the Deep Soul, and make a little bit of a recap where we speak about all the things that we've encountered so far, the elements I like the most of the first season, and what I find the most interesting, like the most interesting mysteries, and also the coolest discoveries and answers that we gotten, and what I expect of the second season. We could be making that as like maybe even a Patreon exclusive that's gonna come out a month or something like that after maybe not a month, but 2 or 3 weeks after it comes out for patrons. We'll have to see about that. And somewhere midway down the second season, we're gonna definitely make a poll about what might even be in a couple of episodes when you end up seeing this, about what's gonna follow up after Made in Abyss. I'm looking forward to ReZero season 3. I'm definitely gonna watch this, although I have to say I've actually read the light novel up to the end of arc 6, so I do know generally what's happening in the third season, but I can't wait to see how it's gonna get animated and talk about all the intricate little details. I mean, that's not gonna keep us from talking about psychological concepts or emotional themes or characters, right? It kind of hampers the speculations a bit, but that's fine for me, right? And it's cool to be in tune with another seasonal, but ReZero still doesn't have a release date, so it might be late 2024, and I do hope that I'm still doing reactions at that point. Like if nobody shuts me down and terminates my channel, I'm actually gonna keep doing it because it's really fun for me, and I kind of set myself the goal that no matter what happens, and even if I have in between maybe a week or two or maybe even a month at some point where I have to not do any videos because I'm too busy with studying or making money, working, whatever, obviously there's going to be a heads up for that. But I kind of set my goal that I want to do this for a year continuously, mostly continuously, and then I'll decide if I continue on beyond that year or if I'm gonna make a cut there or just do the occasional reaction. But I'm definitely, the way it looks at the moment, even with all the copyright issues with Freon, I'm having a lot of fun. I'm having a blast. I'm probably gonna react to a few movies and whatnot, and it's gonna be a cool time, and I'm gonna do it in the time that is available to me, trying to give you some bang for your buck, of course, on the Patreon. Speaking of the Patreon, if you do like my videos, I would like for you to drop me a thumbs up, write in the comments down below what you liked about the reaction, and what you liked about the episode, what you find interesting, maybe some light novel, maybe some manga information. As long as it's not spoiler territory, I would really like not to be spoiled if possible, even not just like, all right, that thing you talk about, it comes up in season 2 towards the end. No, please no. I mean, you can say, okay, very interesting point you put out there. I wonder how that changes down the line, or how your opinion on it changes down the line. Those are cool as comments, but don't go further than that and hinting at things that are gonna come up, because otherwise, right, what are we speculating for if I'm getting everything told? But it's always interesting to see additional information, like the information about the force field, or about various other aspects from Rex's ability to sniff out stuff, and yeah, to kind of get more of a sense of what the manga people have been able to see. And maybe one day we're gonna look at the manga once season 2 is over and we've done a couple of other things. Maybe we're gonna look into the manga and do some manga panel reactions every once in a while. once a month maybe. That would be cool, if I don't have any other projects going on, but that would be cool. Anyway, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, if you don't want to miss any videos. I do also have a Patreon. At the moment it's early access 1 week for Made in Abyss and a couple of days for 𝐸𝐸hren whenever I actually manage to get it out. I just decided, as the point of this recording, which is early December, that 𝐸𝐸hren is going to be timer reactions going forward because I have a lot of issues with it getting blocked. I do hope that doesn't keep you from watching the videos anyway. It would be really cool to still have you watching. Whenever I can, I'm going to make a series edited, but obviously it's now no secret that doing timer reactions is going to be a lot less time intensive than actually editing the reactions. So I might be able to do a series or 2 more if I can do 1 or 2 of these series as timer reactions. So if you do like that, or if you don't mind either way, you can tell me that. I did also have a little community poll up on the YouTube community page. If you want to contribute to that, I think it's still open. I'm just gonna leave it open and see how the consensus changes over time, to see what my audience wants. Maybe we make a follow-up poll at some point. But yeah, check out the Patreon if you have the time. It's, I think, a little bit over $3 in dollars. It's €3 for the early access tier. And if you want to vote on special polls and whatnot, that's probably going to come up late December or start of January or something. Then subscribe to the $5 tier. The $10 tier is just 1 patron at the moment. At some point I might open it up more, and we do have other benefits, but $5 and $10 are getting special mentions at the end of a video. I don't have any yet, obviously, so I haven't any special mentions yet, but I'm probably gonna make an outro where you see various videos of mine and the channel, right? And then you see the list of the patrons scrolling down like a credits section. That would be really cool. Maybe I'll mention 1 or 2 of you every once in a while. Other than that, the $10 is mostly for people who really want to support me, and then I also do have the option to suggest a series where I definitely will watch the first episode, and if I like it, I'll take it on the list for the possible next reactions, right? Put it in a poll and see if people would like me to react to it or not. Or look at the reception, if it's getting a lot of views or a lot of likes, a lot of reception, a lot of people watching all of the video. I might also just put it on and be like, okay, we're gonna react to this now. But yeah, I'll see you in the next episode of Made in Abyss, episode 13. It's gonna be very interesting how they end this season, and what information we have going into the Dawn of the Deep Soul movie. Yeah. Honestly, I mean, it's exhausting doing these reactions, especially since they're so long, but I'm really enjoying that. Also, I'm trying my best to keep them somewhat short. I'm saying somewhat short. I know it's not short, right? And guys, if it's really too much, just tell me. And after a while, I might get used to doing them shorter, but as of now, it's a really, really cool thing, and I just want to enjoy talking about it and reveling in what the art and the backgrounds, the detail. I haven't mentioned that in a while, but maybe we do that in episode 13 now. And just the amazing world that's built here, because building a story such as this is very, very hard. And I'm very impressed always when I see somebody who creates such a world out of their own mind. Now, obviously, there's a lot of inspirations, right? Lovecraft, whatever, but it's really cool. So see you next time, guys, and have a nice day, have a nice night, have a nice weekend. At this point, it might almost be New Year, so Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and I hope you enjoy your time with family, friends, or whatever.